Where am I? Good morning. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside. Our opening hymn this morning is number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but please only with a mask on. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, 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 whoever you are, condemned, worshipper, lover of living, ours is no worshipper, lover is living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, whoever you are, condemned, worshipper, lover of living, ours is no caravan, lover is living. Come yet again, come.
Thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on your YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I sit sometimes during the song, had back surgery last December, so to stand for long periods of time is still a bit of a challenge. So my spirit is high, even if my bottom is low. I'm Nick Williams, a member of the worship committee, and I will be your worship associate today. Other members of the worship committee you will hear from include Alec Peck, our music coordinator, and Tinka Friend, who will be reading today's sermon message. We also couldn't get along without the technical skills of Adam sitting down front and Kate Lewicki in the back at the soundboard. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart and with muted electronic devices. We welcome all of you to our service, especially those of you who are searching for a spiritual home. Whether it's your first time in worship with us or your 100th time, we hope that you will find here questions that stretch you, people to defend you, and liberal values that invite you to join us in feeding your spirit and living your faith. So welcome. Welcome into this space of love, discovery, justice, fellowship, and worship. Although our doors are open, the pandemic is not over. So while we are in this sanctuary, please be aware and keep your mask on while singing and your social distancing. Before we move into our service, there are a few announcements we would like to share. We will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we'll leave up a slide with all this information, and it is available on our website. You can make an appointment at vaccine.california.gov or for information and more options of vaccine locations, go to covid19.california.gov. Let's all take personal responsibility to protect ourselves and others. We're all in this together. The newsletter comes out first of every other month. Send articles to Kate at treasurer at uuchurchofriverside.org. Look for the next newsletter at the beginning of November. The yard sale. Linda and Kate are looking for people to help with the yard sale beginning Thursday, November 3rd through Saturday, November 5th, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. They will be setting up in the parish hall on Thursday, November 3rd at 10 a.m. The yard sale itself will be held Friday and Saturday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. with the packing up on Saturday afternoon. On Thursday, they especially need people to help bring boxes downstairs from the annex. Please see Linda if you can help on any of these days, even if it's only for an hour or two. We appreciate your participation. And now I invite you to sit back, take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. You're welcome to read with me the mission statement of our church. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environmental sustainability. Reverend Bruce Clark Clear. The Reverend Dr. Bruce Clark Clear, 1950 to 2022, was ordained in 1983, earning a doctorate from the University of Chicago School of Theology. In 1993, after serving in Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, he returned to his roots in Indiana, becoming the pastor of All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church in Indianapolis, Indiana. Reverend Clear's work as a theologian and minister was defined by an abiding passion for social justice as the foundation for church community. As pastor in each of his churches, he became an active member of the local council of churches and an outspoken community advocate for progressive and humanitarian causes. Do we have a view as black and white or as varying shades of gray? Have our experiences taught us that most things in life are absolute or ambiguous, or something in between? In today's reading, written by Reverend Bruce Clear, we will consider the concept of fuzziness and how it relates to UU values and beliefs. Now, we have two lightings of sacred flames. The first is the occupied Indigenous peoples remembrance candle. Second is the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. The spot we occupy was first the sacred space of several groups of Indigenous peoples, including the Kawia, the Kupena, and the Serrano. We, Universalist Unitarians, Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewards of the sacred and holy place. We are blessed with a space of opportunity to strive to live out our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey and worship together. Today's reading for the chalice lighting is Open to Unexpected Answers by Julian Lepp. Nope. Nor that person up front. We seek our place in the world and answers to our heart's deep questions. As we seek, may our hearts open to unexpected answers. May the light of our chalice remind us that this is a community of warmth, of wisdom, and welcoming of multiple truths. We have a tradition at UUCR to welcome those who are visitors or perhaps returning after some time away. We know it can be uncomfortable to stand up here and speak in front of others. And so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us your name and how you found out about our church. We ask you to step close to the microphone and speak into it directly and clearly so everyone can hear. However, be aware that you will be visible on our Zoom camera and in the recording of this service, which is posted online. Do we have any church members who would like to volunteer, Grace?
Sure, Nick, I'd like to volunteer.
Your name, please step forward to the mic. Tell us your name, how long you've been here, and how you found out about our church.
Okay. I'm sorry? Bend the mic.
Close to the mic.
Close to the mic. Hello? Is that good? Okay.
Step- Good.
My name is Grace, and I believe I've been here since October of 2018. I've been in Riverside for a while and was looking for a place to practice spirituality and get spiritual sustenance during the week. Was curious because I saw this little church on the corner and decided to come in and found a place where you are not forced to believe anything and not coerced to come. And there's a lot of spiritual freedom going on in this church. So I have been here since then.
Thank you. That's how it's done. If you're new here, a visitor, or an old friend, please raise your hand and stand or roll down in your wheelchair to the microphone in front of the pulpit. If there is someone online who would like to introduce themselves, please raise your hand and we will call on you by Zoom. Please let us know who you are, where you are from, and how you found out about us. No one over here? No one over here? Okay, yes, please. Step up to the microphone.
Good morning. My name is Barbara, and I'm from Corona. And I found this church online and just searching for a place that I could practice, spirituality without the rigor, I guess, of some organizations. And I am a humanitarian. I am definitely of indigenous background. And so this sounded like something I'd like to try out. Thanks.
Thank you. For any other new guests, please join us for socializing and coffee hour after the service. We'd love to chat with you out in the parish hall, where you can also find our visitors book. Please leave your name before you leave so that we know you were here and leave your contact information if you want to know about upcoming events. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office. I'm sorry, I was remiss. Adam, is there anybody on Zoom that wants to identify themselves? Okay, thank you very much. Our hymn now is number 121, We'll Build a Land, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but please only with a mask on. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing number 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garments instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build the land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
This is our SOS announcement. SOS, or Sharing Our Spirit, OUR, Our Spirit, is a program to help families in need during the holiday season. All the income from this fundraiser goes into our designated SOS fund, Our goal this year is $2,500. This year's Sharing Our Spirit fundraising is being held from October 19th and will end on November 27th. Collections will be on the second and fourth Sundays in October and November. This will give UUs a little more time to shop for our Thanksgiving and Christmas food and gift baskets. For our community and our support for Christmas and Thanksgiving Day meals. Contact our office or our treasurer, Kate Lewicki, or Administrator Robert Braun for more information. If you'd like to help us reach more families this holiday season, UUCR will graciously accept monetary contributions and donations of new and gently used toys, clothing, packages of new underclothes, socks, blankets, toiletries, etc. All monetary donations and donated items are tax deductible. Please mark all donations to this fund as SOS. You may write this on the subject line of your check or place cash contributions in specifically marked envelopes at your pews and place them in the offertory plates. This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished in several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is shown here, as well as the church website and in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Markets gives our church a rebate on Stater grocery cards, which we will have in the church each Sunday and in the church office throughout the week. You get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage for free. Please see Bill Rowe or contact the church office to purchase these gifts. There we go. Thank you. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works best for you. Thank you for your generosity, and to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Will the ushers now please come forward to receive the collection? Volunteer will also be coming around to collect any weekly food and hygiene donations for the community. Our next hymn is number 402, From You I Receive, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but please only with a mask on. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 402 in the Gray Hymnal, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give the gift from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give.
Our meditation today is by Kahil Gibran. Say not, I have found the truth, but rather, I have found a truth. Say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path. Now, I would like to introduce Tinka Friend, reading the sermon entitled Fuzzy Questions, Fuzzy Answers. Please note that this sermon was pre-written by Reverend Bruce Clear and selected from the UUA website. The text does not necessarily reflect the personal views of the reader.
Oh, I'm sorry, this didn't get. So some technical difficulties. It was fine for Nick because his vision is fine. I've had surgery on both my eyes and have scar tissue in the center of both of my eyes. And so I need the font much larger. Thank you. Yeah, one more. I want to, that's fine. Well, that's okay. So, welcome everybody. Good morning. I'm on a game show. You don't have to be around Unitarians for very long before you start hearing things like, Unitarians can just believe anything they want. Or, leading UUs is like herding cats. They each go their own way. Or, UU churches are really just non-denominational. Well, I myself repeated some of these when I first started attending the church. Then, under the leadership of several UU ministers here at UUCR, I came to understand that our UU faith is a true and legitimate religion, with roots going far back, way before the Protestant Reformation. The free and responsible search for truth and meaning throughout the centuries is what has ultimately led us to this moment in time in our UU faith. Many of our religious forebears endured terrible hardships as a result of their quest: loss of livelihood, ostracization, ridicule, excommunication, and even death. Did you know that Joseph Priestley, who, by the way, discovered oxygen and helped to establish the British Unitarianism and was a close friend to Benjamin Franklin, was attacked by an angry, violent mob in Birmingham, England, where he lived. And that mob torched both his laboratory and his house. And he and his family had to flee to the recently formed United States of America, where his religious teaching sparked a long-time admiration and friendship with Thomas Jefferson. So we have long endured because of this inclination that we have to search for ourselves what is true. Many of us feel that the journey of questioning and exploring is what life and religion is really all about. A definite answer is not as important as the results gained by the broadening of the mind. Maybe that is because revelations constantly change with more and more information and understanding. Do you hold the same truths, the same beliefs that you did 10 or 20 years ago? With that in mind, I welcome you to enter into this space and time with me as I read the sermon, Fuzzy Questions, Fuzzy Answers, by Reverend Dr. Bruce Clear. Some of you may have heard Garrison Keillor's Thanksgiving story, in which Unitarians are featured. Somebody needs to find out what Keillor's experience is with Unitarians. He mentions us frequently, and I might add, usually his comments, whether complimentary or critical, are right on the money. In this story, he describes a Lake Wobegon family visiting relatives back east for the holidays and mentions that the relatives are Unitarians. Then he says something like, "A lot of folks say that Unitarians have no beliefs. That is not true. Unitarians have very strong beliefs. It's just that what those beliefs are depends upon what book they just last read." We are, it is true, often criticized this way. When it comes to religious belief, it is hard to pin down Unitarian Universalists. Sometimes we are criticized, and rightly so, for having no beliefs. Other times we are criticized, and rightly so, for having too many beliefs, that we believe anything we want. Sometimes those criticisms are appropriate, sometimes they are not. See what I mean about it being hard to pin us down? The whole subject of Unitarian Universalist beliefs is a fuzzy one. The problem with this line of criticism is that, in addition to it being true, it is also mostly misguided and irrelevant. Unitarian Universalism is not a religion that is centered around a common religious belief system. A common religious belief system is sometimes called a creed and has been uniformly resisted and opposed throughout our Universalist and Unitarian history. Though we do not have a uniformly held religious belief system, I'm convinced that we hold a fairly uniform religious value system, like that expressed in our covenant in which we have our 7 principles. Values are quite different from creeds, but that is grist for a different sermon mill, I'm afraid. To say we don't hold uniform beliefs does not mean that we don't hold beliefs. On the contrary, most Unitarian Universalists I know, as individuals, have very strong opinions on all matter of subjects, and most are not shy about expressing them. The problem is that our beliefs are not consistent from one person to the next. Most Unitarian Universalists I know have not held the exact set of beliefs over the course of their lifetimes, but have shifted and altered and modified their beliefs as time has passed. And most are not embarrassed to admit that. If the topic of discussion is Unitarian Universalist beliefs, the conversation is bound to be a fuzzy one. Our beliefs change from person to person at any one time, and our beliefs change from time to time in any one person. I have long seen this fuzziness as a strength, not a weakness. We humans are not omnipotent, and we form our beliefs based on the best information we have. If we're being responsible about our beliefs, then they are bound to be altered in light of new information and new insights. We tend to agree with the French existentialist feminist philosopher, Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote, "To say that life is ambitious is to assert that its meaning is never fixed, that it must constantly be won." When I say that I have long felt this way, that our fuzziness of belief is a strength and not a weakness, I can prove it. Any honest assessment of human experience must acknowledge its ambiguous nature. There is beauty in ambiguity. The reason we Unitarian Universalists resist the rigidity of religious creed, the reason for honoring tolerance and valuing an open mind, is that so much experience is ambiguous. Simple answers to difficult questions may be reassuring, but they rarely reflect the complexity of experience. I'm naturally suspicious of any answer, but especially a religious answer, that is presented as certain, absolute, and simple. I am more open to answers if they are presented as tentative. Some years ago, when I was a seminary student, I praised ambiguity because it seemed to more accurately reflect human experience as I knew it. I praised it because it seemed to be the only honest way to live. I praised it because, like art, ambiguity lends itself to the aesthetic richness of interpretation. I praised it because its alternatives, various forms of certainty, were unacceptable. This morning, I can praise ambiguity for all those reasons, but I have a new one to add to the list. In addition to its consistency with the human psyche, in addition to its beauty of interpretation, in addition to it being a cornerstone of the free mind, ambiguity, I have now discovered, has the added value of being true. And it's not just that we experience the world ambiguously. The world is ambiguous. This time, however, I have a new and improved word. I've traded the word ambiguous for the word fuzzy. It is a much more common sense expression of the very same idea. I encountered this new word and this new insight from a member of our All Souls Church of Indianapolis, who a few years ago recommended a book titled Fuzzy Thinking, The New Science of Fuzzy Logic. The author is Bart Kosko, a professor of electrical engineering at the University of Southern California. One interesting part of this book that I will not discuss is Kosko's claim that fuzzy logic makes computers smarter. But what is new and intriguing in this book, at least to me, is not the justification that our vague opinions are valid simply because the human mind cannot be certain about things, but rather the conclusion that our vague or fuzzy or ambiguous opinions may be justified because the world itself is a fuzzy world. Religious fundamentalists is the natural product of certainty. They are the consequence of a belief that what we know is actually the way things are. But absolutism of certainties, that's not limited just to religious ideas. One finds absolutists in nearly every field of knowledge, including every branch of the sciences. When someone presents an idea as beyond all doubt, I have long admired John Dewey's 1929 Gifford Lectures, which were published under the title, The Quest for Certainty. In those lectures, Dewey questions all absolutism, religious, philosophical, and scientific, with the argument that the human mind is fallible and subject to all manners of influence that can skew its understanding. Here's one way he says it. The world as we experience it is a real world, but it is not in its primary phase a world that is known, a world that is understood, and is intellectually coherent and secure. In other words, the human mind can get it wrong, and we can never be content that the ideas and opinions we form about the world are fully certain. Any fundamentalism or absolutism or rigid doctrine about life is only as reliable as the fallible human mind. The quest for knowledge is a legitimate quest, for we can gain new insights and improve our understanding. But the quest for certainty is always ultimately illusory. This is where I was 13 years ago on the subject of ambiguity. We can never be absolutely certain about anything because the human mind makes mistakes. What Bart Costco adds to this conversation is that the quest for certainty is thwarted, not just because the mind is fuzzy, but because the world itself is fuzzy too. From the time of the Greeks, we have been misled into believing that statements about the world must either be true or false, right or wrong. Either ocean tides are controlled by the moon or they aren't. Either an apple is red or it isn't. Either gravity holds the water in a cup or it doesn't. We have turned statements of facts into idols about which there can be no doubt. The earth is flat, we once said with certainty, and the sun moves around it. The earth is round, we later said with equal certainty, and it moves around the sun. The earth is egg-shaped or pear-shaped is a later certain conclusion. And the sun is not a sun, it's a star. What all these statements have in common is that they were each propositions that were either true or false, right or wrong. They were not just estimates or guesses, they were statements of fact. The prevailing assumption of Western thought is that all statements must be true or false, completely true or completely false, with no degrees in between. Our thinking left no room for something to be partially true or partially false. No, was black and white with no shades of gray. But it turns out, after many centuries of working with this mistaken notion, that our statements about the world are only approximations, more or less right. All statements fall somewhere on a continuum between true and false, right and wrong. There is still some true in the statement, the earth is flat. It's just that there's not very much truth in it. The earth we plant a garden patch on is flat, but it is only a very small part of the earth. If you connect it to bigger parts of the earth, you will see that it is really round. The statement, the earth is flat, has an extremely small truth value. The statement, earth is round, has a significantly larger truth value. But there is more truth value if we say, instead of round, that the earth's shape resembles an egg or a pear. Egg-shaped or pear-shaped seems to have an even larger truth value, which is to say that it is more true, but it is not absolute or certain truth. Any statement we make about anything in the world is necessarily fuzzy or vague, though some statements are much fuzzier than others. All statements about reality are statements of degrees. Are rocks hard? Well, more or less, but usually more. Some rocks are more so than others. Is the sky blue? Well, more or less, usually more. Is snow cold? Well, more or less, but usually more. Is snow warm? Well, more or less, but usually less, and so on. Reality is not black and white choices, but shades of gray. Costco says it this way. The fuzzy view says that almost all truth is gray truth, partial truth, fractional truth, fuzzy truth. Now, math, by the way, is the only exception. Math is the only thing that is either true or false, black or white. But then math statements have nothing to do with the world. They tell us only about numbers. Costco quotes Einstein as one of the great prophets of fuzzy thinking when he observed that, so far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain. And so far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. From this, it would seem that Einstein embraced a very fuzzy reality. Fuzzy thinking means simply acknowledging that the truth about everything in the world is a matter of degrees, shades of gray. Costco describes asking audiences to raise their hand in response to the question, how many of you are tall? How many of you are honest? How many of you are rested? There is no definite answer, only fuzzy answers to such questions. People are more or less tall, more or less honest, more or less rested. Some are much more, and some are much less of each. Though ancient Greeks like Aristotle taught us to think in terms of certainty, they could have also taught us fuzzy thinking. Costco notes that Zeno's great paradoxes were models for fuzzy thinking. Zeno instructed, for example, to look at a pile of sand and ask yourself if it is a pile. Yes, it is. Take away one grain of sand and now ask yourself if it is a pile. Yes, it is. Take away another grain of sand. Is it still a pile? Yes. Take away another grain and ask the question, and then a third and a fourth and a fifth grain. Take away thousands each time asking the question. Is there a point at which it is no longer a pile? Will it be a pile of sand when there are 2 grains left, or 1 grain, or no grains? The statement, this is a pile of sand, is a fuzzy statement because there's no way of determining exactly when it is and when it is not a pile of sand. Bertrand Russell, whom Costco identifies as one of the early prophets of fuzz, though he called it vagueness, did the same procedure, but with baldness. Take away one hair from the head and another. When does one become bald? Now, I know that all these mind tricks are not everyone's cup of tea, and I want to assure you before I go any farther that there is in fact a point I want to make to all of this. For those of you who don't care to play the word games I've been playing, please know that I hope to make all of this relevant before I finish. I do know that some of you, though, who are like me, enjoy these sorts of games, and so I'm going to give you one more example to play with. It is an example that troubled me for quite a long time before I read about fuzzy thinking. This comes not from Costco, but from James Gleick in his book, Chaos. It is an example that troubled me for quite a long time. Gleick tells the story of Benoit Mandelbrot, a mathematician, who asked the very sensible question, how long is the coast of Britain? And so he imagined measuring it. Take a picture from an airplane or a satellite and use reference points to measure it, and you will get a measurement. But you'll miss all the subtleties of small inlets. So you'll need to get closer and measure the inlets, and your measurement will be longer. If you get close enough, you'll see the water flowing around large boulders that jut out into the bays. And so you're going to need to measure around the boulders, and your measurement will get longer. But the coastline includes not just boulders, but also rocks and pebbles, and you'll need to measure the water flow around them, and your measurement will get longer. And don't forget those grains of sand, and the grains of sand contain molecular structures that jut out just as the boulders jut out. They're much smaller, but they should still be measured. At each level, the more precise the measurement, the longer the length of the coastline. Gleich says that Mandelbrot found that as the scale of measurement becomes smaller, the measured length of a coastline rises without limits, bays and peninsulas, revealing ever smaller sub-bays and sub-peninsulas, at least down to atomic scales, where the process does finally come to an end. Perhaps. In this imaginary measurement process, each step towards precision reveals how much more still needs to be measured. Each attempt to be precise reveals how imprecise the previous answer was. In Costco's book, he says that precision increases fuzziness. He quotes his own teacher, Lofty Zeta, a chair of the engineering department at the University of California, Berkeley, who says, the closer one looks at a real world problem, the fuzzier becomes its solution. It is time now, I suppose, to leave the mind games that I find intriguing in Costco's book and to try and find a principle or a value that they can point to. The reason for presenting these various mental exercises is simply to illustrate Costco's thesis that fuzzy thinking is justified because the world that we seek to understand is a fuzzy world, not a precise and certain one. There is, I admit, a grave danger in embracing this fuzzy thinking. If all our knowledge is fuzzy because the world that we know is fuzzy, it would be easy and mistaken to conclude that it doesn't matter what we believe. What we believe isn't going to be precisely certain anyway, and we aren't going to get it right no matter what we do. This is the complaint, you will recall, that is often lodged against Unitarian Universalists. It doesn't matter what they believe, UUs can believe anything they want. Does fuzzy thinking lead us inevitably to such philosophical and theological apathy or nihilism? Does our inability to know anything for certain trivialize what we believe about the human soul, or about the purpose of life, or about the meaning of death, or about right and wrong, good and evil, or about God, or about anything of importance? This is not, it seems to me, the lesson to be gained from understanding fuzzy thinking. Fuzzy thinking is not about getting things right, but about getting things right more or less. It is not because fuzzy answers are some kind of consolation prize to make up for our inability to know things for sure. Rather, we value fuzzy answers because they are the right answers to fuzzy questions. If questions about rocks and coastlines are fuzzy, how much more fuzzy must questions be concerning the meaning of life? We hold beliefs because we want answers that are right, more or less. The task is to keep working at it until we are more and more right. Garrison Keillor's characterization of us was accurate. Remember what he said? A lot of folks say that Unitarians have no beliefs. That is not true. Unitarians have very strong beliefs. It's just that what those beliefs are depends upon what book they last read. It is both a criticism and a compliment. And it affirms a certain fuzziness in the positive sense of that word at the heart of who we are. We usually call it a search for truth. We sometimes even call it a religious journey. Whatever we call it, we look forward to that next book, the next encounter, the next conversation, expecting our ideas to be more clearly formed and more adequate than before. Our religious values teach an openness to new ideas and views. That value suggests an inherent uncertainty and tentativeness, a fuzziness. If we were certain about our truths, we would have no use for open-mindedness. And there is one other aspect worth mentioning before closing. Consider the statement cited earlier by the engineering professor Lofty Zeta. The closer one looks at a real-world problem, the fuzzier becomes the solution. This is why I suggest that most Unitarian Universalists are suspicious not only of rigid answers, but of simplistic ones. The religious journey and the search for truth continues. And in the next leg of that journey, I will not be afraid of fuzzy questions or fuzzy answers.
Our closing hymn is number 347, Gather the Spirit, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you, but please only with a mask on. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Winter to the chorus of life resounding in all. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
And we will close with a benediction. Blessed is the path upon which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. May you go forth in peace. Namaste, amen, and blessed be.
Thank you, Tinka, for sharing your valuable time and sharing the reading with us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. For those who would like to stay in the sanctuary for 10 to 15 minutes to share some discussion or observations from the service, please remain in the sanctuary or online. Please be aware that these comments will be posted online. Is there anyone online who would like to participate? For the rest of you, you're now welcome to adjourn into the parish hall. If there are, okay.
So does anyone have anything that did the message of this, like strike you in any way? And either you can relate to it or you completely disagree. If so, please come forward and share.
Well, I've got to say, it cleared things up for me. I got a lot from Costco, the warehouse, not the guy quoted here. Say your name and talk closely to the mic.
Hello, Mike. Just one of the ideas of fuzzy thinking is the political idea where we kind of hope that we're going to have some of our spiritual values expressed out there. And the idea that says, it seems to boil down to sort of a binary ordinarily with the system that we've currently got. But a lot of us are getting more and more interested in looking at how they do things overseas with having multiple voices and looking at variations on a theme and hoping that not just getting rid of the fuzziness and coming up with the two best, but literally keeping the fuzziness a little further along in the process so that we can pick from them at the end. At the very least, that fuzz is a thing of some value.
I wanted to share that I, more or less, right? There were aspects of this that I agreed. There were aspects of it that not that I disagreed, but that the part about revelation, I mean, more will be revealed, and when more is revealed, then we change our mind. And that's certainly who I am. But I will say that also as a spiritual and religious person, when I'm in my intellectual place, I liked those sort of exercises, and I like the fact that more is going to be revealed and that what I'm stating is not an absolute. But with the religious part of it, there are aspects from general religion that I find comforting. And when I'm in that place, I don't want to analyze, and I don't want to see, is it more or less, or how true or not true. It's, there are prayers or phrases that I find comfort in. And I wouldn't want to be analyzing that all the time. So I just found myself, a little torn in some places, but definitely more on the sense that what I used to know, what I used to feel, what I used to believe has changed. And it has changed because of the books I read, the people I meet, the encounters that I have, information that I gather. One of them, for instance, is I belong to a group here in Riverside, as does Adam. In fact, Adam, I think you may have created it, the White People of Faith Against Racism. And in fact, we're going to have a speaker next week who also is in that group. And so looking at anti-racism, and I had to look that I did not consider myself to be a racist person. I didn't feel I was raised that way or anything. But what I discovered was that I didn't really question the system. I looked at my own actions, my own beliefs, my own feelings, and felt pretty good about that. But when I really stop and look at the history of our country beyond slavery, okay, beyond that it is so embedded, and it is so that you don't even think about it. You don't even realize it. And so I am changing, and I'm changing for the better about that. And so I do believe that we shouldn't just hold on to a belief because it was given to us, that we need to look inside of ourselves. We need to look outside of ourselves. We need to, we need to be open to becoming.
So the sermon made me think of the phrase, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." Yeah, so.
I believe that was in reference to a time when the phrase free, white, and 21 meant white men.
I do like this particular idea, the idea of, as the sun comes through in diluted form from across space, through the atmosphere, filtering down and even through the window here. The thing I like about the idea of fuzziness is a little idea that says, as humans, you got to fight the budget. You got to hash something out and come up with something by the time the bills are due. You're stuck with a grid hitting you. But it is occasionally exceedingly comfortable to remember that in one snap of the fingers, that the light that strikes the surface of this planet is more than we have ever used in our career in all of civilization. So the thing that I like about fuzziness the most is if you stop and think, and somewhere it's in the budget.
Thank you. Anyone else like to share? Please state your name and speak directly into the microphone.
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I kind of came in late, but by the way, thank you for your sermon and your teaching today. I think pretty much what you're talking about, one of the fundamentals of Christianity is going to be not to be wholehearted or hard-hearted, excuse me. Come before God or Yeshua as a child, So that's one of the biggest things of just always staying open. I kind of, you made me think about where our last belief was from the last book that we read, and that's just being that open-minded, okay? But it kind of concerns me with the fuzziness thing. I understand why you choose that word fuzziness, because it's something you got to search. There's uncertainty about that, but can we really change that word to wisdom? I mean, and when it comes to racist, if I may, I don't mean to be weird, but what was the name of the organization you work with?
White
What?
people of faith against racism.
Okay, so to tie in what I was talking about, change, right? Well, it seems like now being politically correct, you really can't even say anything about color, to the point where when I heard you say that, I was like, wow, that kind of sounds racist in itself. Mainly because of today's political, being politically correct, so I just, again, thank you for your share, but that's what I got from that, and just understanding the fundamentals of again, Christianity, which is be open-hearted. So just don't be so close-minded. I deal with an individual who, he's one of the few people that literally puts his Christianity right in front of his feet, but he can't appreciate a different colored bird. And he actually condemns me for coming here because, like he said, they say you guys believe in anything. I'm like, no, we're open-hearted. We're not just so on a track that we're just going to let everything go by that could possibly go by if it isn't this, whatever. So I commend us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed your name again? Ariana, I know you came in late, so I just want to explain a little bit. I read the sermon. I did not write the sermon. No, I understand. I just wanted to make sure you understood that it was written by a UU minister who actually died this year, and this is one of his sermons.
It also made me think of our 7 principles and how they're all common, I believe, common beliefs that we all share here, but how we act them out can be very different. And that's the fuzziness of our religion. Anyone else would like to come up? Anybody on Zoom? All right, thank you very much for coming and being a part of our service.